Welcome back to the CGV YouTube channel. I'm an automotive content creator and a key grip and gaffer when I work with larger crews. I like to bring you guys behind the scenes on projects that I'm working on, and today I'm going to break down the lighting on a project that I recently got hired for. A full body paint protection film on a brand new RIVIAN R1S. I recorded some of the day of footage at the shop while I was working. However, I think I formatted the card that it was on. It was in my 360 camera and I think I just didn't think about it. I think it might have been one of the only files on, and I went for a ride or something and threw the 360 camera up and for some reason decided to format the SD card. But that's okay because I'm here now and I'm just gonna walk you through everything. So here's the situation. My client got hired to put paint protection film on a brand new RIVIAN R1S. And what paint protection film is if you've ever heard of like vinyl wrapping, it's a lot like that, but it serves a different purpose. A lot of it is clear and it's kind of a self-healing film that's made to protect the car from rock chips or hail or weather, stuff like that. It keeps all of that stuff out of your paint by adding another layer onto it. So this RIVIAN was at my client's shop to get the entire thing wrapped, top to bottom, everything. In fact, they tinted it as well. So this is a significant job for their crew and it's quite impressive work. It's very time consuming and you have to be very tedious and very, very dialed in. You have to know what you are doing in order to pull this off without it looking horrible. So shops like to hire my company to make what I call a process highlight video. Since it is an impressive task, it's nice to showcase that to their following. Their following likes to see that and likes to see the work that they're doing. And it's a thing for prospect clients for them to look at and say like, wow, that's really impressive. And you look like you know what you're doing. And of course, they can put it on their website as portfolio work or something to just really clean up that website and make it look a little bit more impressive and dialed in. I break these kind of jobs into 2 different days. One day to capture the work that's being done, and one day to capture the final shots of it shining with its new coating. On the first day, the shop space was just a little bit tight. They kind of had a lot of projects going at once, but I still wanted to light the shop with my lights instead of the overhead fluorescents. Fluorescent lights tend to do 2 things. Number 1, light up the entire space really well. Number 2, put a green or weird cast on a lot of skin tones, and then you end up having to fix that in post. The problem with they light up everything very well is that you also lose some contrast in the room. There's not as many shadows. It doesn't have dynamic scenery, so it's just a flat scene, which just doesn't look awesome. It looks fine generally, like, just highlight videos and stuff if you're running and gunning, but I personally really like to light up the insides of these buildings and give them that extra pop. So with all that to say, let's jump over to the computer and I'll kind of break down where I put those lights and how they were affecting the scene. Okay. So one of the first setups I want to bring your attention to was a setup that I used for the majority of the work happening. One of the lights, actually multiple lights, are visible in the frame. It's a quite busy frame. It's not exactly distracting, but this 600X with the Fresnel is pointed right up, straight up towards the ceiling and bouncing off and providing a little bit of fill light right here, which I will explain later. We have some closer shots. It's not much, it's just a little. This was mainly for the talent just to light them appropriately because I knew they were going to be primarily working over here. The other lights you probably see are my 4 Godox tube lights. Now one is there, one is there, one is back here, and then one is right in the front here. And really what all of that is doing is it's splashing some blue that's hitting the rim of the lights up here, just reflecting off of all kinds of little surfaces once you get close. And the brand colors are blue for my client. So it just felt right to have that incorporated into that. Dances off of the paint nicely, things like that. So this is a shop light here. This is kind of the main key source, which is not ideal in my opinion. However, this light is actually pretty color accurate, as I found editing this footage. So that was pretty cool, and it doesn't flicker. And I checked that on site. Always check if you're gonna use shop lights, okay? Always check if they're gonna flicker on camera, because sometimes at your lower shutter speeds, you're gonna catch this like light jittering effect, and it's just gonna look like trash. So that is kind of the first setup. Now, the second thing I wanted to show you was this shot here. This was kind of tighter into the talent. You can see I'm orbiting in, and you see just that 600X was making just a little amount of fill light, and this is a kind of light, but it worked. And again, it was fast. It was a quick setup, of course, with the key to this side. This is one of my more favorite shots of the whole project, actually. I think that the skin rendered nicely. We just had the perfect amount of light hitting her at the right angle there, spilling over on the side, and I just, for a run and gun type setup, I was really happy with this. So the next shot I want to move on to kind of show you the lighting is, what I didn't show you was back here off to the left is that I had a sneaky Aperture 200X with a lantern on it that was kind of my floating light setup. I would just kind of run it around and move it if something was happening in a different area that I wanted to go capture. So what I did was, for this shot, he was working here. He is pulling the PPF film off of the plotter that they use. He's kind of pulling it out of there and organizing it. I wanted to get some shots of him, but the lighting was really bad over here because I had all the lights off and my other lights were occupied. I quickly grabbed the tube light and then that 200X with the lantern on it, and I set the lantern just kind of off camera left, up high. It did decent distance away, and then that tube light just splashed a little bit of fill and kind of lit up the white with some blue, and it rendered his skin nicely. It was a nice soft light, and it was very quick to do. He was over here for some time, and I saw and I said, hey, you know what, I got a free moment, I'm gonna move this stuff over here and get some shots over here. And I was really happy with this for just run and gun on the fly stuff. The next I'll move to is this shot here. And again, I realize I'm showing you all of the people up front. We're gonna get to the car later. This was another example of just kind of running on the fly. So I had the 600 still set up, but I had actually turned the overhead lights on at this point. So there are overhead lights like regular fluorescent lights. They were kind of in a hustle, and I didn't want to be too much of a nuisance with turning the lights off. So I left them on, and it created a decent scene. Obviously the contrast is a little bit lower. And so that was one reason I wanted to talk about this, is just so you could kind of see the difference between what it looked like between overhead lights and no overhead lights. This is a much more dramatic, cinematic looking frame than this to me, because the walls all lit up and everything like that. It still looks nice and it's still telling the story. It's just that little extra razzle dazzle that I like to add in there and play with light. I think playing with light is really fun. So now we'll go ahead and move on to the final shots. The first shot I'll talk about here is this one. This is the first of the final or finishing shots, and we'll just go ahead and break down kind of where I got the lights. And that is basically, you can probably see most of them. I have a 200X hitting it, kind of just backlighting it a little bit, providing a little bit of like flare. You can see it's just bouncing off the chrome trim up there, and then when I got to the back, it provided just some more visual interest on the backside. But then I had off camera left, way up in the air, was the 600X with the Fresnel again, and I used just a little bit of actual leftover PPF to diffuse that light just a little bit, just to cut it down from that hard source to bring it down to something that is still hard, but less blast, we'll put it that way. It wasn't like soft, like diffused light like you'd use for skin, but it was just less blasting, and kind of opened that Fresnel up quite wide, and just hit it from the left side. And then of course we have those shop lights that were up over here hitting it from the right side. And then that kind of concluded the lights used in this shot. One thing I really like was the way that this kind of like shiny floor reflected these lights, and it just adds kind of a little piece of flare in the corner. Again, this was another setup that was just, I tried to do it very quickly because I wanted enough room to get some wide shots. I was just working with that environment basically. So yeah, there's the breakdown of where those lights were. And if you're wondering, yes, I will do a kind of like VFX breakdown video if you guys are interested in seeing that, because I did use some effects in this video that maybe you saw and want to know how to do. Unfortunately, it's not going to be covered in this video, but the link will be in the description if you'd like to check that video out. So there's the breakdown, the general setup I used on the finishing shots. And then here you can see this is the same setup. This was the 600 that I was talking about. It was set up over here and kind of made for a cool reveal effect around the back of this Rivian. So yeah, that was that back shot. You can see the way that the 200X that was behind it, you can see the way that it's just really illuminating this here. Really looks nice. It's giving us some flare off that badge and a bumper, and just really pulling out the shape and contrast of the vehicle. Okay, and then here is the actual final finished video that was delivered to the client.
Nice one, nice one, nice one.
Overall, I'm very satisfied with the final product. However, I almost wish that I had another 600X or a 1200X just to provide a little bit extra light. This light is really an absolute monster, but when it comes to lighting a room that's so big, when you're bouncing that light off of a ceiling that's almost 20 feet high or so, it kind of loses its magic, and I feel like an extra 600 or maybe something like the 1200X for this specific type of shop environment would really be ideal. One challenge you'll run into doing these types of jobs is that it's live. These people aren't actors. They're doing a job, but you're trying your best to provide a cinematic experience that's going to tell a good story. So the actors in this case are also trying to work, which means that they need an ample amount of light to do their job. So I would turn all the house lights off and leave that 600 and my other light setups running, but kill the house lights, and that would provide them with kind of a little bit less light to work with, which after a while, if you're trying to do something, it's kind of frustrating. So I would make sure to go turn on the house lights so that they can continue, and then I would kind of just go in phases. However, I do believe this process could be refined with the same tools. When you're working in a fast-paced environment, sometimes you just need to make a decision and then make it happen. It's all a part of growing and learning as a content creator or a filmmaker, just being on a constant roll, making notes of what you could do better next time. And I think I could refine this. I think this could be moved in tighter. Maybe if I had like this much more space, I could use these same tools and get a better result with more light for the talent to work, so I wouldn't have to keep switching on and off the house lights. All right, that is it for this video. If you found anything in this video helpful or entertaining, please go ahead and like the video and then subscribe for future videos. If you'd like to keep up on social media, there's a link in the description that will give you access to all of our links where you can find us everywhere, including Discord, where you can join our server, you can hang out, you can ask questions, you can share your work, and just have a good time. So as always, thank you, and we'll catch you next time.